Hi, everybody, and welcome back to On the DL. I am excited. I'm always excited for a new episode, but this one hits close to home because we are talking about perimenopause and menopause. Yes, I have said it. I am in that stage of life, like so many other women, going through it, going through the motions, and I have the perfect guest to talk about all things perimenopause and menopause today. Hi, Andrea Donsky. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to speak with you. I have to admit, I have been creeping your accounts like crazy and listening to your awesome podcast
Thank you.
nonstop on my walks. I actually had it blasting the other day in my bathroom as I was taking a beautiful Epsom salts bath
I
to
love
help
it.
my aching bones and muscles. And my husband came in. He goes, "What are you listening to?" I'm like, "Excuse me, you can just remove yourself right now. This will not entertain you." Uh, so I have to tell everybody, or you can please tell everybody first tell them about your podcast where they can start listening to you right now.
Yeah, sure. So it's Morphus for Menopause. So Morphus. And the reason that's the name of our company, because it's metamorphosis, changing as we're going into this phase of life, and us as a community. So we're doing it together as a team. And I think that's the pivotal word, because for many of us, as we go into this stage of life, we feel alone and isolated. So Morphus for Menopause, you can look it up anywhere you listen to your podcast. We also have a YouTube channel if you actually want to see us in person on video. You can go to YouTube and as well look up Morphus for Menopause.
I did. I also checked out your YouTube video. I sometimes do that after a podcast because I want to see what the guests look like.
Yeah,
I'm a very visual person,
me too.
and so I it's funny because you have somebody talking about menopause, they're talking about their symptoms as an expert as well, and then you go and you watch them and you realize that woman is just like me, right? She's
Yeah.
feeling just like I am. And I feel in the last little while, there's so much stigma around menopause. Maybe it came from our mothers or our grandmothers, but women are, I don't know if this is more than ever or it's just because it's my passion, but women are speaking out and out more about the way they feel. And they're not ashamed to talk about their bodies.
Yeah, I always say, Gen Xers are not going into menopause lightly. We are going to change the conversation. And like our grandparents, like, it's funny. I'm on TikTok and I talk a lot. I interview my mom a lot and I'll ask her questions. But before I even entered this phase of life, I never really spoke to her about it. I remember she had a hysterectomy when she was like 49 or 50. I remember, when she was going through it, but I never even asked her a question about it. Like I didn't even know anything about perimenopause and menopause. And she's super open about talking about it. Like she never spoke to her mom about it. So it was like this taboo topic that none of us wanted to go there because it's embarrassing and that made us feel isolated. Like, there's so many things going on in our body and we really didn't have very many people to speak to other than maybe a parent or somebody you knew that or a friend that went through it. But my mom was very open, saying she never even spoke to her friends about it because of the embarrassing factor. But and even some of many of us will speak to our doctors about it, but because as we go into perimenopause there aren't any really definitive tests to tell you that you are
Mm-hmm.
there. Often people are, dismissed, or they're like, okay, come back when we can actually do a blood test to tell if you're in menopause. So it's just a difficult time, for women. And I think all of that put together just makes us feel alone, isolated, like there's something wrong with us, and it's just not. So I think that's the important thing to remember, is that you're not alone. There are so many of us going through this at the same time. There are people to speak to. My TikTok page, my podcast, I try to make myself available for people so that when they do have a question, and I don't have all the answers, like I definitely do not, but I have a lot of resources and people that I can connect people to should they, should they need an answer that I couldn't answer, that, I can put them in touch with.
I want to read your bio. It's impressive, and particularly for women who are listening right now, and men. This will help you. It will certainly help your relationships. This is a very good educational podcast today, for sure. But I want to read it now because it's important that people understand why I've connected with you and how I
Okay.
found you. So,
Thank you.
Andrea Donsky, known as the menopause educator by over 140,000 TikTok followers. Andrea is a nutritionist in menopause who's on a mission to normalize the conversation around a still very much taboo topic, perimenopause and menopause. As a registered holistic nutritionist, Andrea shares practical solutions on how to manage your peri and menopausal symptoms through nutrition and lifestyle changes, as well as supplements. An avid researcher, Andrea dedicates her time to finding the best in class science backed ingredients for her Morphus supplement line, specifically created for women by women in menopause. Andrea has more than 22 years of experience in the health and wellness space and is a multi-award winning influencer, best-selling author, TV health and wellness expert, and of course, podcast host. And you can subscribe to Andrea's podcast at Morphus for Menopause, join her private Facebook group at We Are Morphus, and follow her on TikTok and Instagram at Andrea Donsky. We're going to talk about all those handles at the end. So everybody, don't worry, we're going to get back to that. But you are dedicating your life to this now. This is your career. This is your life. It's your passion. It's your work, everything.
It really is. You know, my career has always been built on where I was in my phase of life. So when I built my first career, I started a company way back in 2000, actually, called the Healthy Shopper Coupon Book. And we were like the first coupon book for natural organic products, because I'm very passionate about natural organic and healthy living. And then we went to Naturally Savvy, which was in about 2007. And that's when I was having, my partner, Randy, and I were having babies, and we were like trying to understand, toddlers and sleep for kids and all of that. So that's where Naturally Savvy came in. And then as we, Randy's in perimenopause and I'm in menopause, as we started getting into this phase of life, we're like, well, I think it's time for a new business. And this is where we're at now. So yeah, it kind of always morphs. I keep using that word. I love the word.
I love it.
Isn't it a great word? So it kind of morphs into where we're at in our stage of life.
And I like that, because I don't just like that, I love that, because that's authentic, right? That is as authentic as you can be. I always say, if you go, it's terrible, but if you go to an esthetician who doesn't have nice skin, okay, I'm being judgy. You kind of go, oh, they don't really get how I'm feeling right now. Or if you go to a male trainer, he doesn't understand what that feels like for a woman to feel like she wants to be in shape. But if you're listening to a menopause educator who's in menopause, who's creating supplements for women in menopause, there's an authenticity to that. And that's why I connected to you.
Oh, thank you. And I think, women are having a hard time in this phase of life. It is a struggle for so many of us. And there's so many symptoms. And I spent the last 5 years tracking all the different symptoms. We call them signs and symptoms. And the reason why we don't want to say just symptoms, because that denotes that menopause is a disease, which it's not, right? It's a phase of life. So there's signs and symptoms. And when I first started this, or went into this journey, it was like, oh, there's about 35, 40 symptoms. No. There's like over 85, probably closer to 100 different symptoms of women in perimenopause and menopause. So this is where we're changing the narrative, because we, things like, a burning tongue or a burning scalp or BO or bad breath or itchy ears. These are things that women may have not associated with being in this phase of life, but they are common symptoms once you get into perimenopause and menopause.
Did you just say an itchy tongue?
So burning tongue
burning tongue.
Itchiness all over, by the way. Yeah. But itchy ears is a really big one that women complain about, and didn't realize that there was actually the connection to perimenopause and menopause.
So I was just about to ask you, what are some of the non-stereotypical symptoms? That would name a few. I haven't heard of those. I haven't had that myself, but I haven't heard of anybody having the burning tongue,
burning scalp, bloating, gas, vertigo, tinnitus. Those sleep issues are huge.
Andrea, last week I could not lift my head off my pillow. Okay.
It's very common.
I'm like Googling what's wrong. I mean, I know I've had vertigo before. I've had it twice before. So I knew exactly what it was. I'm like, oh, great. I have vertigo. My husband's a doctor, and he's like, he did the whole vertigo test, and he's like, you have vertigo. I'm like, great. I'm looking it up, which I shouldn't have been on my computer, but I had my head on my pillow, had my computer beside me and my phone. It was terrible, but it was what it was. And it said that vertigo is actually a common post-COVID symptom. So I'm thinking, oh my God, I must have had COVID and I didn't know. Is that possible? But it's comes and goes. So and it's not long COVID. Oh, it's not peri. I'm way
Oh, you're
past peri.
menopause. Okay. So it could
Oh,
be a
I'm even
menopause
past
thing.
that. I'm like, wait, I'm past. I'm done. So yeah, I'm in that phase
Yeah.
where these are symptoms that are starting, and nobody has said that to me before.
Yeah.
Not one doctor, not one naturopath. No one has said vertigo is a symptom of menopause.
It's just not a very common, symptom. Like, other things like lack of focus, lack of concentration, that's a really big one in
Yeah.
perimenopause as our sex hormones are going down. That is like, I remember I would say that I was always a type A personality, with probably A++. And when I was going through peri, I remember there were days I couldn't focus, I couldn't concentrate, I didn't want to work, which was so unusual for me. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I realized after that it's very common as you're going into perimenopause. We're recalibrating, our body's changing. So understanding understanding what's happening to our body. And I always say, if you think of it as a cell phone, and your cell phone is upgrading its software, you're not really using your phone while it's upgraded. At least now you probably can, but back, when in the beginning, like you couldn't really, so you had to like wait till it upgrades. And that's what's happening to our body. So it's a lot of the time, especially in perimenopause, can be anywhere from 2 to 12 years. It's a long period of time. For me, it was about, I think I went into perimenopause around 42 and then menopause around 50. It was about 7 years for me. 6-7 years of peri for me. And now I've been in menopause for 2 years. And, so the whole process is so life-changing. There's so many questions. It's so complex that the thing that we just need to understand is just to allow our body to do what it's doing, and speak to people who have knowledge in this area, right? So if you're looking for a doctor, look for a doctor that specializes in menopause, because then they'll have answers for you, right? And now with telehealth and being able to connect with people online, there are a lot more options out there for women who want to connect with a healthcare provider who understands menopause specifically.
And also listening to podcasts like yours, because I love that you're just really just plowing through each topic, and that these are topics that they really are. So, I mean, all the symptoms, right? There's really sort of that host of symptoms that drives women nuts, right? They're all of a sudden they say, oh my God, what is that? Or where did that come from? Or why am I feeling this way? This is bizarre. And how do I change it? And when you speak to a physician and they say, well, I'm sorry, it's kind of, it's your stage of life. You just kind of got to suck it up, buttercup. That's not true.
It's not true. There's so much we could do. There's so much we could do. It used to be true, and it was like, okay, there are some options, but nowadays there's so many options. So my lane, I always say, is nutrition, lifestyle, and supplements. That's my lane. But then there's also the whole hormone therapy, right? So like bioidentical or body identical hormone, now they're calling it, right? So there's the whole, there's hormones. So there's supplements, there's nutrition, there's lifestyle, all of that can play a role. And I like to use them all synergistically. You don't have to use one or the other. You can use them together if that is something you choose to do. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to what feels right for you. The decision should be made between you and your healthcare provider. And then you come up with a plan that will work, that hopefully works for you. And if it doesn't, then you tweak it.
But because there are, so individualized, obviously it's so highly personal, but how do you know where to even start? So if I even said to you, what is the worst thing I could be doing while I'm in this stage? Or what is the worst offender in terms of diet at this stage? I know you're pausing. It's like,
well, it's not so much the worst. It's everybody's so individual, right? So I always I like to say that what worked for us before the stage may not work for us now. And
I hate that. I actually hate that. Do you hate that?
I do hate that, but it's so true. And the reason why is because our digestive system is changing. The motility is changing. You might be more prone to gas and bloating. It may not, your digestive enzymes may not be as, as plentiful. So there's so many changes going on in your body. So let's say, for example, if you're going to have a glass of wine before bed, in the past, you might have been able to have that glass of wine, go to bed, no problem. But now that glass of wine will trigger possibly a hot flash or a night sweat, or it'll disrupt your sleep all night long. And I know, and as fun to hear that as it is, it's such a reality for so many women. I mean, I can't even have a glass of anything, no alcohol at all, because right away it triggers a hot flash for me. And I don't want to deal with the hot flashes. So for me, I can't do it. Now, I wasn't a big drinker before anyways, but I just, for me, I just can't do it. Same thing for chocolate. Some people, chocolate, caffeine, all of that can be big triggers. So it really comes down. So there's no one major offender, but it really comes down to listening to your body. We know some of the main offenders, like, for example, like alcohol, caffeine, sugar is another one, like processed sugar, right? Refined carbohydrates. These can, first of all, they have no nutrition, but also
Right.
they can also trigger issues. They can spike your blood sugar. So there are things that we know of that can be an issue, and refined carbohydrates are a big one because that's the white stuff. So if you're going to eat your carbohydrates, just have, complex carbohydrates, right? Have like some millet, have some wild rice, have some squash, have some like, quinoa, have things that are going to have that fiber and the vitamins and the minerals and all of that good stuff. So it helps with that nutrition.
So I was listening to this on your podcast this morning, and you were talking about how it all starts in your gut, right? The health starts in your gut. And that I think most women, even as they approach perimenopause, not even so much menopause, but perimenopause, are starting to feel that there are changes going on in their body. And maybe it is around the motility, as you were talking about, and digestion. And there are things that we can do to help, let's say, as opposed to just ease us through. I think is what I've been reading is that fiber is so important.
Fiber is key. So you can do soluble fiber. You can take it as a supplement, or you can just eat your fruits and veggies. You want to feed that good bacteria in your gut. So probiotics, obviously, eating foods like kimchi and sauerkraut and miso. These are foods that contain probiotics that can help replenish that good bacteria in your gut. And yeah, about 70% of our immune system, 70 to 80, is in our gut. And that's probably the interview I did with Bonnie Weisner, I'm guessing, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So Bonnie is a fellow nutritionist, and she is a gut expert and excellent when it comes to nutrition. So it's a matter of doing things. Even the other day I was asking her, I'm like, okay, and another really prominent symptom of perimenopause and menopause is stress and anxiety. And I'd say that's probably up in the top 5 for sure. There's the weight gain, there's the moods, the stress, the anxiety. I mean, on my TikTok page, I can't even tell you how many women are saying that they're debilitated by it. Sleep issues, debilitated. Like it is just really tough for women as they get into perimenopause and menopause. And, taking care of our gut is important because there's that gut brain connection, right? So, but is it the easiest thing to do? It's not so easy to do, right? So that's why, like, doing things like, eating those foods, taking those probiotics, seeing a nutritionist, if that's what you want to do, seeing someone like Bonnie who can help you if you wanted to understand your food better or how to eat better. There are lots of great nutritionists who actually see clients that can help you through that, changing your diet, learning how to read food labels. I mean, that's really where I started with my career with Naturally Savvy. This is before Morphus, is understand. I wrote 3 books on how to read food labels and understanding what these ingredients are doing to our body. So for example, monosodium glutamate, MSG. And the interesting thing too, is that a lot of these ingredients that we know, according to the research, can wreak havoc on our body are actually, have the same side effects as a lot of symptoms in menopause. And I'll give you an example of that. MSG. So the side effects of MSG could be, headaches or excessive sweating or hot flashes. Hello. Right. So, it's so similar. So that's why it's like being mindful of what we're eating. Now that could be overwhelming for a lot of people to be like, oh my gosh, I got to change everything. I got to, look at my diet. But if you are having symptoms, if you are not feeling good, then maybe that's a route you'd like to explore.
Interesting. For me, as I said, this has become a passion. I've always been interested in health and wellness, but as I have gotten older and every year as I age and my body is changing, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but I'm very into it. I want to have this next stage of my life. I don't want to say like go so smoothly. I just want it to be, I want to be the best I can be. I don't want to fight it and say it's not happening. I know it's happening. I just want to feel well. So I want to be able to say, I know that if I binge on cake, I probably am not going to feel great the next day. But if I made it myself, which I did last week, I baked a cake. It was delicious. With whole ingredients and I felt better about that as opposed to a store-bought cake, because that
Yeah.
really kills my stomach. It starts in my stomach. So that resonates with me when you were talking
Yeah.
about gut health. But for some women, it's not about digestion and it's not about motility. They're starting to feel it more, as you said, in sleep and mood.
Yeah.
But there are things that they can do to help themselves with sleep and with mood. And that sort of helps me segue into like supplements, because you are creating a supplement line.
Yep.
And what do you think are some of the basics that women should start exploring and doing their research now around in terms of supplements?
I really believe that there's foundational supplements that we all should be taking. So, let me even back up for a second,
Sure.
because I think I really, one of the things that I've learned over the last 5 years since studying menopause and perimenopause is that we really need to understand what's happening with our body. So the number one thing as you go into this phase of life, I always say, is to get blood tests and to go to your doctor and get some tests done. Get your thyroid checked. Get your TSH, your free T3, your free T4, your reverse T3, and then your antibodies. It's called TPO and TG. So you want to get those tested. Now, I just learned actually that so I've always had low thyroid, but in the last year, I just went for my annual blood test in January and my thyroid was completely out of whack. And I was like, oh no. So I had to like adjust my medication. And now I'm dealing with some thyroid things. So like our bodies are constantly changing. So being on top of our testing is important, getting your iron levels tested, making sure, because if those two alone, thyroid, iron, and even vitamin D, those can have a big effect on so many different symptoms, including sleep, including mood.
I have to tell you, I just found out 2 days ago that my iron is so unbelievably low.
Yeah. Common, by the way.
And it was tested in the fall, and I was sort of teetering in the fall, like, oh, it's not great. We're going to keep an eye on this. And now it's much too low, much too low. And I don't like to hear stuff like that. That makes me nervous. I don't like, but I thought, well, I don't have a lack of energy. I'm not feeling like those stereotypical low in iron, anemic I'm not feeling that way, but it is showing up in other ways that I probably don't even realize what that means at this stage in my life.
Yeah. And so you definitely, low iron you can lose hair with low iron.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And women are probably, when you're talking about testing, it's the follow-up too that's so important, that women have to understand that even though you may be low in something or high in something, that you don't necessarily have those stereotypical symptoms, because at this stage, everything, it feels like it goes out the window. It just doesn't, nothing seems right.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, what we've been.
I know it's frustrating a little bit, right? So that's why where you can take control by getting those, those testing done. It can make a big difference, and it can help you with several different things. So to go back to your question about supplements,
yes, please.
There are foundation supplements that I really believe we should all be taking. So vitamin D would be one of them. Obviously, getting your vitamin D level checked, but then also taking your D, but make sure you take it with a K2, because that helps the vitamin D. It helps it absorb better. The other thing is fish oil. I'm a big believer in omega-3s, making sure that we're getting that's for the hair, skin, nails, heart, brain, really important, probiotic. If you need that probiotic, taking that daily probiotic is important too. And magnesium. Most of us are deficient in magnesium. So I love magnesium glycinate. I love magnesium threonate, especially if you have anxiety. Magnesium threonate, or even mood issues, magnesium threonate crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it's really great. So these are like foundation supplements. And if you're having issues with gas and bloating, you could take a digestive enzyme, right? So these are foundation supplements that I think are great for every woman at this phase of life.
So are your supplements available now, or you're just creating the line?
Not now. We're just creating it. We're hoping it's going to be available at some point this year, but you can find them, pretty much any health food store or anywhere you shop. Yeah.
No, and that's incredibly resourceful and helpful for sure. I'm wondering, do you have a take on when you're supposed to take supplements? Because I've read so many different things. Morning, not with food, take vitamin C at night, vitamin D in the morning, take your Bs in the middle of the day.
It's so complicated,
So complicated.
So I would just say, take them when you remember. You may want to stay away from like your Bs at night, just because they can keep you awake, but take them when you remember, and then follow the directions on the bottle. That's the best way to go about it, because the companies will have to put them on the bottle how to take it.
Can you take them at the same time? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, it depends which vitamins you're talking about. So some you can, some you can.
I'm just talking about the ones that you were talking about, right?
Oh,
So
the ones that I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, you could take those if you, when you remember. Oh, B vitamins too, by the way, are really great.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think all the ones I just talked about. So if you want to take your omega-3s, I would take that with like a meal with something fat in it. Same thing with the vitamin D. You may want to take it with some kind of fat in it because they're fat soluble. Your B vitamins, you could take, like we said earlier in the day, you could take it with your magnesium. I even like a mineral complex, which has, if you don't want to take straight up magnesium, you can do it as a complex, which has several different minerals in it.
Oh,
So you can
okay.
do something like that as well. So
And magnesium, I take magnesium at night because it helps me fall
yeah,
asleep.
you could take it at night.
So
It helps you fall asleep. You could take it during the day if you feel like you need a little bit, if you have anxiety. So it can help you magnesium is great because it helps you
really,
to relax. Yeah.
really, magnesium for anxiety.
Yeah.
I love
Especially
it.
3 and 8. It's awesome.
Threonate, not biglycinate.
Glycinate can help, but 3 and 8 is amazing because it crosses that blood-brain barrier.
Okay, everyone, listen up. That's good. I love that. Okay, so there's a couple other things that I think are important that I want to ask you about in terms of like supplements and stuff. BCAAs. I'm a little obsessed with my BCAA. I don't know if it's because I love the taste or because I actually think that it's helping my muscles and recovery. What is your take on that for women at this stage?
So amino acids are
Mhm.
very important because it actually helps to build muscle. So,
Oh, good.
so one of the things that we need to remember, keep in mind is as we go, so you're talking about what to eat as we get into this phase of life, we need a lot of protein. We need a lot of protein. Protein keeps us satiated. Protein helps to build muscle because we're more prone to sarcopenia, which means the degradation of muscle. We want to make sure that we are eating between 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal, which is quite high. So,
Per meal?
per meal, it's quite high. It's a lot. So again, listen to your body, but that's what's recommended by a lot of these experts out there who are talking about women who are over 35, into perimenopause and menopause. A lot of fiber, obviously, a lot of fruits and vegetables, and those complex carbs and that kind of thing.
Andrea, hold on. I have to interrupt you. You just said 35. It's getting younger and younger and
You're
younger.
right. It is. I have women on TikTok who tell me they're in their late 20s who are going through perimenopause. It's like according to the
out.
yes, yeah, it's getting younger and younger. Like our girls are getting their periods earlier and earlier. I don't know why. I don't have the answer on that. That would be a great question for a doctor, somebody who would understand that. But I am hearing from so you're not wrong. I am hearing from a lot of women that they are going through it. So we say 35 plus can be any time going through peri, but it can definitely be earlier. It's just not as common, but it can happen.
Okay, sorry for interrupting. Okay, sorry. BCAAs and protein.
So I take like an amino acid mix, which I love because it has a high bioavailability. Is that why you take it? Because you feel better on it?
Yeah, and it's so much better I work out almost every day, and I have muscles, and I don't want to lose my mass. I like being bigger. I don't want to be scrawny and thin. I want to be muscular and thin, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and so when I said that, my naturopath was like, you got to take BCAA.
Okay, well that's great. So yeah, no, I do take it's a formula called the SON formula. I don't know if that's like, anyways, I take
SON.
It's called SON, SON. It's a formula that it's just a mix of different amino acids in it, but it may not be the same thing as what you're taking, but it's a high bioavailability of protein and amino acids.
Okay, so that leads me to my next topic about BCAAs in terms of when you can take them. I have heard this and read this. You can take it 30 minutes before you work out. You can sip on it while you're working out. You should take it 30 minutes after you work out. I'm like, well, if I take it after I work out, aren't I supposed to have my protein after I work out? I know that's part of the protein family, but it's still, I'm like, there's so many things I have to take and eat and drink. I don't have enough space in my gut or time during the day to take all this.
It becomes very overwhelming, right? So that's
why a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And that's why I'm like, take it when you remember and don't stress about it. Cause it just, it just adds more stress to your day, which you don't need. Just take it when you remember.
Exactly. But this is my segue, BCAA and fasting. I know that you've talked about intermittent fasting, that you are in favor of it. It has helped so many women. I have interviewed so many people, not just women, approaching this stage of life, post menopause as well, and have said that it has saved them. It has changed their bodies, saved their lives in the sense that they feel so much better. They were able to shed those 5 to 10 pounds that they put on during the menopause stage, and they feel so much better. There's a lot of controversy around it. We'll talk about that in one sec, but I just want to ask you about BCAA and intermittent fasting. Can you drink your BCAA while you're in the midst of an intermittent fast?
I don't know that answer because I'm just trying to think.
Because there's stuff in it. There is sunflower lectin in most of them.
Yeah. So you see, generally you could take your supplements. So I don't know about BCAA and the brand you're talking about in particular, but in general, you could take your supplements while you're fasting. So that's what I had read too. Yeah. So there generally you can. And the thing about fasting is you want to just stay away from calories. That's the thing, right? So anything over like 25 calories, you want to stay away from. So I would say, again, if you remember to take it while you're fasting, just take it. Don't be stressed about it.
Right. Exactly. So I interviewed Dave Asprey from the founder of Bulletproof Coffee.
Dave,
yeah. And we were talking about supplements and intermittent fasting specifically. Yeah. And some supplements have olive oil.
Some of them also have sunflower oil. Some of them also have all different types of, yes, again, you can get very specific, and Dave is extremely bright and knowledgeable, and I would listen to what he says because he's amazing. And I would just say, if it's going to be a matter of, I can't fit this in my day, what should I do? Then either don't take them or just take them and don't worry about it. Right. And you can look at the ingredients, but for the most part, there are a lot of experts. I'm not an expert on intermittent fasting. There are a lot of experts out there. You can even Google it. Mostly from what I've heard is that it's okay to take your supplements when you're fasting.
Can you talk about your podcast episode? I apologize. Her name is escaping me, who you interviewed. She was fantastic.
For intermittent fasting?
Yeah.
Mindy Pelz, Dr. Mindy Pelz, probably. So she is very well known about, you can Google her. She's all over YouTube, and you can Google her, and she has her own podcast, which is fabulous. She interviews really smart people. And she looks at the research at intermittent fasting. So Jason Fung also, I would look into his research.
Love Jason Fung. Yeah. I've interviewed him too. He's fabulous.
So he's like he's the guy.
He's the guy.
Yeah. So he's the guy. So I would look up those experts in terms of, how to go about it, what to do. In terms of, there's a ton on YouTube on intermittent fasting. You could find so much information there too.
Because talking about women in intermittent fasting, as I said, during menopause, it has helped so many women. And when you think about it, and again, I am not promoting it. It doesn't work for everybody.
It doesn't work for everybody. It's great for some people and not good for others. And there's also if you have Hashimoto's, you shouldn't be doing it. Like there's, autoimmunity, right? So there's certain things that you shouldn't. So again, everybody's individual. You have to do what's right for you. But yes, it has helped a lot of people.
And it can play with your hormones a little bit, right? It could maybe mess with it a little bit. We don't know. I mean, you have to talk to your doctor about it.
Yes,
that's why I always say to people, so when I do interview people about it or their experience around it, you have to be knowledgeable. You can't just all of a sudden say, I'm going to stop eating. You can't do it. It's not what intermittent fasting is. It's not about just going to bed and waking up and missing your breakfast, right? Or not having
breakfast. Getting in your calories in the window that you need to get them in. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrea. Thank you for saying that. That's important. And that's very important for women at our stage too, because you don't want to be at a calorie deficit and then all of a sudden you start eating a month from
women,
now.
Yeah, no. And a lot of women are told, eat less, exercise more, because that's how you lose weight.
God.
It's not reality, and it's not the truth, and it's detriment. That's really detrimental to women when they're told that, but they're told that a lot.
But I feel like we've been told that for decades and through every stage, post-pregnancy for sure. That's like that was the line from every healthcare professional was, you have to eat less and you have to exercise more, and then the baby pounds will come off quickly. It's like, I know, we're both like, oh, really? Yeah. Especially when you're breastfeeding 5 times a day and you're up all night, that doesn't work. I'm still into my Haagen-Dazs ice cream, so, but I wouldn't do that now. I wouldn't do that at this stage. I wouldn't, because I feel at this stage, it wouldn't serve me. It wouldn't serve me well. I would feel very sick if I
you got to do what's right for your body, and that's listening to your body is the key.
Yes. And I love that you just said that. You also had, is it Sarah Gottfried? Is that how you
Oh,
say her name?
loves Dr. Sarah
Oh my
Gottfried. Oh my God.
gosh.
Love her. She's amazing. So she wrote a book called Women, Food and Hormones, and
Yes.
she is specifically a hormone doctor, and she's wonderful. And I would highly recommend picking up that book.
Mhm.
And you can watch the interview I did with her on my or you can hear it on our podcast, or you can go to YouTube and just Google Andrea Donsky, Sarah Gottfried. It'll come up, or Morphus. Go to our channel and subscribe. And she talks a lot about the way we should eat and adapting our diet as we get into this phase of life. She's pretty awesome.
And she talked a lot about keto refugees.
Yeah, because keto, she doesn't believe that keto works well for women in this phase of life, and she has a lot of patients that she does a lot of research, and so she believes we just need a modified keto diet. So if you would like keto, but just kind of modify it to include more carbohydrates. So yeah, she's done a ton of research, and that's where I'd say
amazing.
look up her book, Women, Food and Hormones. It is an absolute amazing read.
It's on Amazon, by the way,
Yeah.
so you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Is it true at this stage that, I mean, I don't know about you, but in my late 30s and my 40s, it was all about fat, eat fat, no sugar. It's all about fat. You'll have a great physique, you'll feel better. And now it's about, in your 50s, it's about eat good fats, but you have to limit your good fats to about 20 to 30% of your diet. It's like, wait, what? Have I been doing it all wrong?
No, again, no, you haven't. It's getting good fat is really important for sure. And I hate the word good versus fat because I feel like it plays into the whole diet culture thing. So it's more like healthier fat, not, staying away from trans fats, staying away from fats that we know, like seed oils that we know now create inflammation in the body, like soy, canola, sunflower, safflower, like these oils. If you haven't listened to the podcast I did with Dr. Kate Shanahan, you should. It's excellent. She's the lead researcher on seed oils, so I highly recommend it. So it's really just being mindful of the type of fat we're eating. So going for the olive oil, the olive oil, the avocado oil, the coconut oil, all of those are really great, olives and avocados, right? So you want to get those good fat, coconut itself, the meat, all of those are really good fats. And then you also want to, I believe moderation is important. So for me, I can't really go over 30 grams or 28 grams of saturated fat. I'm talking saturated in particular. And by the way, the whole notion around saturated fat has changed. We used to think it was really bad and causes all these issues, but now we know it doesn't. I interviewed Dr. Johnny Bowden, and he wrote 15 books on the cholesterol myth. And he talks about how it's not as bad as we once thought it was. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about moderation. I think that's the word of the day.
Everything has to be about
moderation. Yeah.
It's moderation. And I love what you just said. Like, when you remember.
Yeah.
Don't
I just
obsess
feel like we have
over it.
So much on our plate. We are so stressed and anxious. And that's like, why even add more to the plate, more to our plate? Just when you remember, take it. Don't be hard on yourself. If you forget, take it the next day, and like I'm saying, when it comes to supplements, like just don't be so hard on yourself, and give yourself the time it needs. My favorite mantra is be gentle with yourself. And it could be hard to do because we're our own worst enemy, right? But being gentle with ourselves can really make a difference in terms of how we experience perimenopause and menopause.
So you were talking about saturated fat. How does one know how much they're eating?
Well, you could measure it because it's found a lot in like animal protein, right? So you can't, even coconut has saturated fat. I think 1 tablespoon has 14 grams of saturated fat. So you can actually measure it. Now, again, I don't want to add to your daily, oh my God, I need to think about everything in my mouth.
Wait, the people are going to listen to this episode. They're going to go, this is the daily, oh my God, because I can't.
Which I don't, which you don't want.
You don't want to do that.
I would
just
say balance, just your balanced diet. That's it. Just balance. So you find if you're eating a lot of extra, fat one day, just kind of taper back the next day. That's what I would say. So I wouldn't say, again, I would say don't get obsessed. I say don't get obsessed with this, with measuring and counting. It just becomes too overwhelming. That's my opinion. I mean, listen, I don't judge. You do whatever you want or whatever your listeners feel is the right thing to do. I'm just trying to take things off your worry plate.
No, and I appreciate that. I'm hoping people listening to this will appreciate it too, because you have enough going on. We have enough going on with our bodies that we just want to get up, feel good and live. But if we can help ourselves to feel a little bit better. So maybe if there's like a week or two where you want to monitor how much saturated fat you're eating and see if there's a difference, right? Then you can start to teach yourself about how much avocado, how many almonds, how many, you know, maybe you don't want to eat that entire bag of almonds or eat 3 avocados in one day because you were told that avocado is good for you. You should have it in your shake and your salad and then serve it as a side at dinner. I'm not making this up. Like this is the stuff that I hear. That's a little too much.
Just listening to ourselves, listening, and just moderation, as I'd say. So half an avocado, 1 avocado a day, that's great. You know, like you don't need 3 a day, you know?
No.
So it's like,
No.
again,
No.
just being mindful of what you're putting in your body and listening to your body, I think is the important thing.
What is the first step you think for women right now at this age and stage?
I'd say the first thing is to find support, because I feel that women we feel so alienated and unsupported. So if you could find support, go to wearemorphus.com, our website, morphus.com. They'll take you to our TikTok page. If you're not on TikTok, we're not that active on Instagram. Although I know you found me on Instagram, although we're not as active as we are on TikTok, but we need to get better at that. But we are Morphus on Instagram. We have a Facebook group, again, not as active as our TikTok page. However, you can DM me, you can reach out to me, and then we can, coming into our Facebook group is great because there's other women. There's about 600 or 700 women in there who are in the same phase of life. We are morphus.com. And I would say, so get the support you need. Communication is really important too. I'd say speak to your doctor, get those blood tests done. Those would be kind of the first steps. And then from there, you can kind of figure out what works for you.
What do you do to feel better?
To feel better. What I've been really focusing on lately is breathing. I've really been trying. A friend of mine introduced me to Wim Hof. And so he has like a free app that you can do breathing techniques. So I've been really trying to breathe a lot more. We actually have an upcoming menopause summit. It's called the Menopause Shift Summit. It's coming up at the end of June. So highly recommend everyone listening, go sign up, go register. It's a free summit. We interviewed myself and my co-host over 40 different experts for perimenopause and menopause. It is awesome. And
how do we find that?
So you could go, what the best way to do it is go to my website and sign up for our newsletter. So go to wearemorphus.com, sign up for our newsletter, and then you'll be alerted. As soon as we go live, you'll get emails, you'll be alerted. You can follow us obviously on TikTok too, but you might miss it. So you can, if you follow us on TikTok, you can just go subscribe to my list. It'll take you right to the list actually. So I would say subscribe to our newsletter. It's the best way to do it. And, and I would say in that summit, you're going to hear from so many different women. We cover so many aspects of this, or facets of this phase of life. It's pretty awesome. So I would say, and I interviewed Lisa Borden from I think it's the Wellness Intelligence Collective, I believe is the name of her company. So she talks about breathing and the importance of breath work. So I would say, breathing is something that I've really been trying to focus on to help me feel better lately. That's kind of been one of my things, but also like trying to get into nature as much as possible. I know it's not easy for everybody. Not everybody lives, near a tree or has like something in there, near them. But if you can, get out in nature, spending time with animals, spending time with people you love, these are things that can really help make a difference and provide, help to stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system. Because most of us are living in the sympathetic nervous system. Most of us are stressed and anxious, right? So we're living in this sympathetic nervous system that creates anxiety. So if there's ways to do it, breathing is a really, really, really good way. And I'm experimenting myself because it's one of those things that I never really devoted a practice to, but I'm just trying to do it on, I'm still not anywhere near where I want to be, but I'm trying to do it on a regular basis.
Do you stay away from alternative sugar?
You mean like xylitol, erythritol, stevia, that kind of thing? No, I love monk fruit. I love stevia and I love xylitol. Yeah, I like xylitol too, but I do like erythritol, stevia, monk fruit. Those are kind of, and I know a lot of people are, say, oh, stay away from everything. I mean, listen,
it's not realistic.
It's not realistic. That's why I wrote a book called Unjunk Your Junk Food back in 2010. Like, I'm not going to tell everybody not to have chocolate when you're craving chocolate. Like, if you're craving something, there are healthy options that you could do. So yeah, no, I don't stay away from them, to answer your question. And I do have stevia, erythritol, monk fruit, and once in a while I'll have xylitol.
Okay.
You have to just listen to your body. Sorry about these sugar alcohols. If it gives you gas or bloating.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so if you have too much xylitol, it can actually give you a little bit of a loose stool. But again, listen to your body and don't over consume. but a little bit, if you're baking, you know, I mean, I love it. I put it in my shake. I put stevia in my shake every morning.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. Just to give it a little bit, because I use like I use unsweetened almond milk or coconut milk. So I'll just put a little bit of stevia to sweeten it.
Okay. So just about to ask you about milk alternatives. Again, here's a new one. I just found out, and I've known this for years, but I've been ignoring it and I've been experimenting with it. I am lactose intolerant.
Okay.
It's confirmed. I'm lactose intolerant.
Okay. I am too, so I get it.
Okay, but I'm devastated because I am the parm girl, feta cheese. Though I know you can do feta with non cow's milk, but I am the cheese girl. Like, I just love my dairy. Although I love almond milk, I love oat milk, I love all of those things too. But I was told that as you get a little bit older, that your stomach or your gut cannot handle the lactose.
Okay. Yep.
So upset. So I've started to just make adjustments in the kitchen and what I'm eating. I wanted to ask you about non-dairy alternatives, what you feel about them. I know there's a lot of hidden sugars and fats and some bad stuff in them as well. And that I just want to remind people listening to this just to be mindful of what they're eating and drinking if it's a non-dairy alternative.
Yeah, I mean, I love almond milk. I love coconut milk. You know, I'll stay away more from oat milk just because of the carbohydrate count. But, you know, I have no issue with non-dairy alternatives. There's some great, there's hazelnut milk, there's cashew milk. Like, there's so many great options nowadays. You can even make your own hemp milk at home, throw it into the blender, you know? So like, there's so many things that you could do that have the alternatives for dairy. I've been dairy free for a long time just because I'm also lactose intolerant. So, and I love that, like, there's alternative, you know, I just found, and I don't know the name, so I can't really share the brand, but I found a brie made from cashews. Oh my gosh, it's so good, you know, like, so there are so many alternatives out there that you don't like nowadays, being lactose free or dairy free or gluten free, like, there's so many options.
But should there be anything that we should be aware of when eating an alternative? You know, like, it's just like a diet food, you got to be careful because there's like hidden things, hidden ingredients.
It would be the same thing that it would be for any food. So just read the labels, try to stay away from those seed oils, try to stay away from, you know, things that matter to you. For me, a big one is the seed oils, just because they create inflammation. So if it has, but most food have soy, like sunflower, safflower, and canola oil. It's hard to stay away from. I'm not going to, you know, sugarcoat it. It's not easy. But if you wake up, you have a lot of pain in your body, you have a lot of joint pain, and you find that you know, read the labels. If you see that you're eating a lot of these oils, try going off them for a week or two and see what happens. You might be really pleasantly surprised that your body's like, wait, I have no more pain. What happened? And it could be as simple as going off seed oils. Like, that's how simple it could be in that respect. So again, it would apply to any food that you're eating, to always read the label. That's
amazing. That is such good advice. That is really good advice. I have one last question for you around that, around seed oils and stuff, about inflammatory versus anti-inflammatory foods / diet, or what we should be looking for. Again, bodies are changing as you're getting older, and things start to feel a lot different in your gut and digestion as you're eating it. I have been told, and I've confirmed reading, but I wanted to hear this from an expert. Tomatoes, eggplant, should not be eating those foods if you are achy and you feel inflamed.
You know, again, it's very interesting, and we could become extremely obsessed with what we put in our body. And by the way, I'm talking from experience, because even myself, I'm all about research. I'm all about understanding what we're eating. How's it going to body? How's it going to affect us? So everything I learn, I share with all of my viewers and my, you know, people, our readers on our website. But I feel like it could get to a point, and it did for me. And that's why I want to get this message across, because it could get to a point where it becomes so, like, we're trying so hard to do the right thing that we become so stressed out about it that we end up either doing nothing, right? Or we just get, you know, we're like, oh, exactly. You're like, oh, forget it, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, it's just too much.
Burnout.
So I just think being mindful, make better decisions. Of course, you know, if you eat a tomato and you feel like, you can keep a food diary. So if you find that you're eating a tomato or eggplant, so, you know, the nightshade family, especially people, let's say if you have Hashimoto's, that's why you want to go get your thyroid antibodies checked. If you have Hashimoto's and you find that you're eating eggplants or tomatoes or peppers, and they're creating some type of aches or pains or inflammation in your body, then again, you could stop eating it. Or, you can keep a food journal and that'll tell you too. So like a food journal would be like, 8 a.m. and just do it for a week. Had breakfast. Here's what I had. How did I feel an hour or two later? And that just alone can make a big difference. And you could see how you feel eating these foods. So I would say, if you really want to know, there's tests you can get done to check for your, if you have leaky gut. There's tests you can get done to see if you have any type of food sensitivities. Like you can definitely get all those tests done. You can ask your doctor for an IgG, an IgE test. Like these are things that can give you insight into what you're eating and if they're affecting your body in a certain way. But unless you're really struggling, I would say try a food journal yourself and see how you feel. And then you can always bring that food journal, by the way, to a nutritionist or your doctor or show them and be like, hey, I think, this is, I'm kind of correlating this back to that. But I would just say, again, listening to your body and doing what feels right, I think at the end of the day, because there is so much information out there.
It's mind-boggling. And
it really is.
It is really mind-boggling. And I wanted to normalize it by speaking with you, because it is all consuming when you're not feeling right. And when, women are going through perimenopause and menopause and they're not feeling right. And it's doctor's appointment after consultation, after this, after that, and you just can't get it right. And you just don't know what's happening. And as you were just saying, like a burning tongue, like I would go to the dentist, like I wouldn't know what that is. Right. So it's just, there's just so much information out there. And I love that you're breaking it down in terms of, it's about taking care of you first in terms of your mental health. Go easy on yourself. It's not about obsessing and making yourself nuts. It is an inevitable stage that we have to go through, but we can ease into it and through it a little bit better by knowing some things.
Yeah, and there are a lot. Like I have a good friend who's really suffering badly, tons of inflammation in her body. She, her diet is, she feels her diet is great, and like which it is, and sometimes there's other things going on, and she's been trying for 2 years now to try to figure out what's going on with her body. And sometimes it's just one of those things that there are no answers right now. Maybe just being a little bit gentle or still working with a doctor or healthcare provider to help her, find out what those answers are, and experimenting. Right? Trying different foods, trying to eliminate different foods. Maybe if feel that can help, or trying certain supplements can help too. But it can be frustrating. And I want to acknowledge that. It can be frustrating.
I'm excited for your supplement line.
Thank you. So am I.
I'm excited. And when do you think that's going to come out?
I'm not sure. And if it does, it won't be in Canada for a bit. So it's going to be in the US first. Yeah.
Shame. Yeah, okay. Well, let us know, because that's always looking for great supplements. Tell everybody again, just remind everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So we are Morphus, morphus.com. You can also find me on TikTok and Instagram at Andrea Donsky, although I'm not that active on Instagram, but at Andrea Donsky on TikTok. And you can join our Facebook group. We are Morphus, again, on Facebook. It's a private group, over 700 women there. And you can ask questions, and we're here to support you. And I think that at the end of the day is finding that support group, and ask around, speak to your friends. I highly recommend speaking to your friends about it, not shying away from it, speaking to your healthcare provider, speaking to a mom, if your mom is around, speaking to an aunt, speaking to people about it. That'll help normalize it as well, and will make it less scary, less embarrassing, and I think having the conversation. So actually, to answer your question, when you asked me before, what's the first thing to do? I'd say have the conversation. That's probably the best way to go. Have the conversation so that we normalize it. Once we normalize it, then we can kind of move to that next stage to help ourselves.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It's just been delightful. Actually, I didn't think talking about menopause would be so delightful, but it's delightful because it's normal. Yes. And speaking with you, it just normalizes it even more. And
it's my pleasure.
I appreciate that. It's your pleasure to talk about it, but I appreciate you, and I really appreciate your work. I do. I love your podcast. Thank you. I think your work is really stellar, and that's why I wanted to connect with you and introduce you to On the DL audience, because we do talk about things that people aren't saying out loud, and there's a lot of stuff in perimenopause and menopause that is not being talked about out loud. And I appreciate you saying you need to start the conversation. You need to speak to someone about how you're feeling, because that is the first step in the rest of your life, really.
100%. No, totally agree. So good luck, everybody. And I hope to see
Andrea.
you on my TikTok page. And I hope to see
I'm going there. I want to go on
me.
TikTok for you. I don't love TikTok. I want
our summit, our free summit. Don't forget that. That's really
our summit
fabulous.
And your Facebook page.
Yes, I love it. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andrea. Be well. Feel good.
Thank you. You too.